Hi guys, Brandy Wendler here. So I feel like I always come to you guys when my hair is like a hot mess. I just put it back today because I am trying to get ready for Thanksgiving, like I'm sure you all are, and trying to get some stuff done from work and prepare for my sister's birthday. So I just threw it back today, and this is what it is. But I want to thank you guys for being in my group, for taking the time to come on this journey with me. And hey, Sonia! As part of this journey, I kind of want to do some educational lives. So I kind of want to do a series just to start on like the hair anatomy and hair growth. So just to kind of get you guys familiarized with like what is going on with your hair follicles when things are working well and when things are not working well. So I want you guys to gain knowledge and gain understanding of that so I can empower you to have your best, most healthy hair. So tonight I'll do this anatomy and hair growth cycle for this first live. So you guys bear with me as I practice on it. Hey, Candace. And then we'll go over some other stuff like female specific hair loss, male specific hair loss. We'll do, 2 more lives on that. I'll talk a little bit about supplements that I like for hair, and then I'll interject in there why Monat works on your hair. And then I'll go over some of the specific ingredients in Monat and the scientific research behind that, because as a nurse, I like scientific research, and it's really important to me. So those will be some of the topics that I'll be covering in future lives. But for now, I just kind of want to do your baseline, what they teach you in high school biology. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If I am using too many big words, let me know, because medicine is my comfort. So that is what I like. But if you have any questions, just text me, message me, comment under here, and I will let you know. I'm going to flip the camera around because I printed off these awesome photos and realized that you guys see them backwards, whereas I see them forwards. Hey, Renee. So I tried to pull these photos up online, so I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll do a little bit of talking about that. So I apologize, but hey, that's a learning thing about live, right? So what I'm going to show you first, let's see, is, how do I flip this around? Here we go. All right, can you guys see? Sorry, I'll move that ring light. That's what makes me look good at the end of a long day. So your hair, and I don't know if you guys know this, but your hair, you have 100,000 to 150,000 hairs on your head. Some people have more, some people have less. There are different reasons, different factors that play into that, but that's about what the average person has. And I will go over the anatomy now. Sorry, my dog is distracting me a little, but okay, here we go. Back to the anatomy. Flip it around. There we go. Okay, so like I said, you have 100 to 150,000 of these on top of your head, and each hair on the follicle sits above kind of a vasculature here. So this is a blood vessel, which is in the subcutaneous tissue, which is the fat tissue of your skin. The blood vessel runs through there, and that's what supplies this hair matrix with nutrients to help you grow hair. So these start developing as you are a baby, and they'll continue to grow from there. So there are actually 4 segments to the hair. Let me get my fingers out there. 4 segments. You have the bulb here. You have the suprabulbar region. You have the isthmus, and then you have this infundibulum, which is just a big fancy word for saying this is the piece that comes out of your epidermis. Most people are familiar with epidermis. This piece is in your dermis, and this piece is in your subcutaneous or fat tissue. So you actually have 4 sections to this. all being fed by this blood vessel, which is very, very important. Now the hair shaft, if you'll see, I'll try to point without hitting my screen with the thing. It has 3 layers. So this hair shaft in the very middle, then you have an inner root sheath, and then you have this outer root sheath. So the very, very middle of the hair shaft, this brown part, is the innermost layer, and that's your cortex and cuticle, if you hear those words. And that plays an important role in kind of shaping your hair, whether it comes out like curly, whether it comes out straight, and that's what kind of surrounds your hair with keratin as well. Now you also have this erector pili muscle, which you'll notice more often in your arm hairs, because that'll what gives you goosebumps and causes them to like stand up. You also have these sebaceous glands, which coat the hair, which produce oil, or maybe not enough for some of you, and that kind of coats the hair and can make it nice, can give it luster, or you can have lack of it, depending on how much is being produced. So that's basically your hair anatomy. I feel like my face is a little more interesting than that, so I'll turn it back around. So if you, I'm going to post that picture below in the comments if you guys have any questions about that later, because it was kind of hard to see, but it's an interesting photo. But you have that one individual picture, you have 100 to 150,000 on your head. And they are formed at birth and continue to form. You have 2 different types of hair, which is a terminal hair follicle and then a vellus hair follicle. Terminal hairs are your hairs like here, like the greasy hair in the back here, or your eyebrow hairs, your eyelash hairs. Those are all terminal hair follicles, and they're a bit harder, they're a bit stiffer. Your vellus hair follicles are kind of like the peach fuzz on your face, maybe on your neck, on your stomach, low back. And you can have vellus hairs that turn into terminal hairs, such as in the pubic hair regions, the axillary regions. You know, when you were a little girl, you didn't always have hair underneath your arms. It was very soft and maybe non-existent, and then all of a sudden you had it and you begged your mom to shave, right? So that's an example of a vellus hair turning into a terminal hair. So these are all terminal hairs. Those are the 2 types that you have on your head. And then once these hairs are formed, let me get to my next picture, you have the life cycle of the hair. The first, the hair cycle is not synchronous. Like it doesn't all grow at once. It doesn't all fall out at once. That's how come we don't have tons of gorgeous hair and then we go bald for a couple months, and then the hair starts to grow back. It's continual, it's cyclical, so it's not in sync, which is good for us because that prevents the shedding en masse of hair, which is important so that we still have some eyebrows and eyelashes and things like that. So your hairs will go through different life cycles. Now the first cycle, and I'm going to turn this back around, is the anagen phase. That is your active growth phase, anywhere from 2 to 6 years. Some people are longer, some people are shorter. In 90% of your hair, the scalp hair follicles are in this anagen phase right now. Now the rate of growth and the duration of it varies, like I said, depending on hair location, depending on your genetics, but 90% of your hairs are right here, right now, as we speak. The growth rate is about 0.3 millimeters per day for scalp hair. For eyebrow hair, it's 0.1, which is kind of nice so we don't get those crazy eyebrow hairs and have to trim them all the time. And eyebrow hairs are only in this anagen phase for like 2 to 3 months. So your scalp hair can be 2 to 6 years, and it'll be in this anagen phase. Now, the next phase is catagen phase, which is kind of a transition phase. So you'll see that here, this black represents the blood flow, the nutrients that are coming into the hair bulb, the hair matrix. And during the catagen phase, the lower portion of the hair follicle regresses or just kind of pulls out from that base, and hair production ceases. So it's no longer feeding it, it's no longer growing it, it's stopping. And this phase is 1 to 2 weeks. It can last up to 3 for some people, but less than 1% of your hair follicles are in this phase as we speak, which is why you get a little bit of fallout continually, and that's completely normal. Now, the next phase is this telogen phase, which is also known as your resting phase, and it can last for 2 to 3 months on the scalp. You'll see you'll start to have a new piece come in here, the dermal papillae, and it's separated from the follicle, but during this telogen phase, about 10% of your scalp is here. So remember, 90% here, less than 1% here, about 10% in this resting phase. Sorry to keep that in your eyes. I'm like super excited about this and not paying attention. But anyway, so this is characterized by the presence of this club hair, this fully keratinized club shape right here, and it's ready for shedding at that point. So it can also be used the term like exogen, but we don't really use that very much. But you lose about 50 to 150 telogen hairs shed per day. So like I said, about 10%, because remember you have between 100 to 150,000 hairs on your head right now. So, hey Dawn, then after that, the anagen phase, we're returning to that. The hair matrix is forming a new hair, and then it's going to re-enter back against here. So it's just kind of like a little cycle. So that's kind of what's going on with your hair. See why this light is so awesome? See, like instantly brightens. I look fabulous. Sorry. I love the ring light. I know Renee loves it with me too, but I will get a bigger one maybe eventually, but the ring light's awesome. So, so that's kind of the basic anatomy of your hair and the growth cycle. Now, what's great about Monat is in that cycle above, and we'll talk more about this in later live videos. I don't want to tire you guys out too much tonight because it's getting late, and then I know your brains start shutting down, especially if you're my sister and you had a big test today. So I'll try to keep this a little shorter, but where Monat works is that you have sometimes inflammation in your scalp here. You may have too much dihydrotestosterone, or DHT as we like to call it for short, because it's just too long to pronounce, and females don't like to think of testosterone being on their scalp, but you do have some. Where Monat works is it decreases that inflammation, it decreases that DHT. Those are the two big things that it does, and it's going to help that anagen phase last a little bit longer. Thank you, Sissy. I appreciate it. It's going to help that anagen phase last a little longer, and during that anagen phase, it's going to make that hair stronger, and it's going to make it a little more beautiful. It's going to give it better nutrients, so that as it grows out, because remember, it takes 2 to 6 years in that growing phase, so as it grows out, you have much more beautiful, much more luscious hair. Just remember, it is a marathon. It is not a sprint with Monat or any hair product. Monat is not going to make your hair grow miraculously 1 foot in the next 3 months. It still only goes that 0.3 millimeters per day. But Monat is going to help with the health of it during that anagen, that growing phase over the 2 to 6 years that your hair is in that cycle. It's going to help decrease inflammation so we don't get an increased catagen phase, or that releasing of the hair follicle for it to fall out, or the telogen phase, the releasing, and then it'll decrease hormones in the scalp. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and we'll also cover male pattern baldness and female pattern baldness, because they can be separate and there can be different causes. And then we'll talk about the ingredients in Monat in other videos. So if you guys have other questions or topics you want me to cover, I am happy to educate you on that and to show you the research. If you guys want to see where most of my stuff is from, it's from Up to Date, which if you are a nurse or a doctor, this Up to Date is basically your field experts updating. I have like a 19-page paper here that has 50 different research articles cited, and it's updated every 6 months. So there's some good science behind it, and that's what excites me. That's what I love. I like knowing the reason why, and hopefully you knowing the reason why will help your hair on your journey to healthy hair, and to have some beautiful confidence in your hair as well. So like I said, I'm gonna let you guys go, but if you have any more questions, if you want to know more topics, I know Sonia is amazing, and I'm so glad I have access to it, and it's free, and I don't have to pay for it, because it's actually pretty costly. But any of those questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to give you guys some education on. Just comment, in the bottom, and we will cover more later. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it, and have a good night.